Welcome to the 3 over 2. I'm Joe Fortunato, and as always, I'm joined here with Chris Grieve. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing really good. Sixers finally traded Ben Simmons, and we have James Harden in Philly now. This is the show we've been waiting for since we started this. We've been waiting so long for this, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, and just a little recap of last week. We predicted some trades. We talked about what we want to do as far as 76ers fans, what we want to see the front office do. We discussed potential outcomes for a lot of players, including Ben Simmons, and I think it shocked us both when the deal actually went through. First thing I want to mention is to give a little kudos to Daryl Morey. I mean, the dude was called crazy many times for holding out on trading Ben Simmons. I know myself and Chris were a little frustrated at one point, just seeing what his game plan was, and now he brings in James Harden. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think Daryl Morey could have done a couple things. He could have traded Ben Simmons as soon as he requested a trade for like Malcolm Brogdon and
Yeah.
a couple picks. And he said, I'm gonna wait. Some star player's gonna request out, and it ended up happening. I never thought that this is gonna happen. I was shocked, but even last week during our show, we never even predicted James Harden, Ben Simmons trade. We were doing all of our trade predictions, and this kind of just emerged within the last week. Pretty much as soon as our show finished, there started to be rumors that Harden wanted out. He wanted to come to Philly, and then Daryl Morey ended up making it happen. And I guess this is why he waited, because he knew that Ben Simmons had value and some star player would want out, and we made the most of it.
Yeah, I think this was a great deal. And, I'm seeing all of these sports media outlets talking about the Sixers lost the trade, the Sixers lost this, no team really won, or both teams won, things like that. It's kind of been all over the place. And the way I see it as a diehard Sixers fan, and I think you're going to agree with me here, is Ben left last summer. Ben left our team last summer. As soon as that playoff series against the Hawks, we lost in 7. Everyone knows the controversial I guess lack of a shot that Ben had. I think that was when Ben left us. So in my eyes, we gave up Seth, Drummond, and 2 first-round picks to bring in James Harden, and I see it as a W. And the way I see it, as far as James Harden being comfortable here, that was also something people were talking about. I mean, Daryl Morey's his boy. He loves Daryl Morey. So bringing in Harden to Daryl Morey again, obviously he loves James Harden. I just think him and Embiid are just going to be unstoppable, and I love it.
Yeah, it should be a good fit. We'll never know until we see them actually play a game. But
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see it. It's 2 of the most dominant players the league has ever seen in different respective ways. James Harden just as a shot creator, and Embiid just being a dominant force with all his skill offensively.
Yeah.
This team could be dangerous.
I mean, just a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, James Harden averaged 36 points a game. Like, I mean, that's almost 40 a night. And you're pairing him with a guy who just last year averaged near 30 points. I mean, the 2 can score. I think this is going to open up the paint for Joel Embiid a lot. I think Harden's the perfect spacer for Joel Embiid, and I'm just excited. I really do think making Tobias the third option is going to allow him to raise his shooting percentages, allow him to flourish in different ways, and be comfortable swinging it out to the wing to Harden.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I'm interested to see if they do with this team is if they try and incorporate the pick and roll more with Embiid and Harden. Embiid isn't really a pick and roll player, but he hasn't had the best point guard to set him up for pick and rolls. So I'm interested if he can learn that and add that to his game more. He's more been put his back to the center and just go in and score post up the whole time. But I've been seeing a lot of stuff that Harden plays really good with pick and roll centers. And if they get Embiid doing that, that just opens up another part of Embiid's game that he never had before. He has the perfect point guard to complement him now. And I think it'll be interesting. And I think everything should fit, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and speaking of the pick and roll, I mean, we saw Harden in Houston help Clint Capella make a career out of the pick and roll. I mean, Clint Capella obviously is probably the best pick and roll guy in the league, but now he's playing with Trae Young in Atlanta, but that's a whole different story. I think that Embiid can be very successful in the pick and roll just because of how versatile he is. Like, if Embiid wants to put someone in the basket and dunk on him, he can do it. But if Embiid wants to put his back to the center, maybe turn and shoot a fadeaway, he could still do that with Harden on the floor. I think the pick and roll, we would have saw the pick and roll be a lot more utilized in Philly if Ben Simmons had more of a shot tendency, if he wanted to shoot
That's
more.
what I was thinking.
Because I do think that Ben Simmons is an elite passer, one of the best passers in the game. But the fact that he doesn't have a shot, teams were like, oh, you can run the pick and roll, but we don't got to worry about Ben.
Yeah, they could just cancel in on Embiid there and let Simmons stay wide open.
Exactly. And now we have a guy who's not afraid to shoot the ball 30 times a night if he needs to. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, I'm curious to see if the pick and roll will work. I mean, they're two superstars. I imagine they're going to gel together. It might take 10, 15 games for them to get comfortable. But as a fan, I'm willing to sit there for that 10, 15 games and let that happen, as long as we're winning some of them.
And it might even take this whole season.
Exactly.
My expectations, I'm not too mad if we don't win it all this year. Say we don't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals this year. I'll be disappointed if we don't, but I'm okay if we don't because James Harden just agreed to his player option also, which is a huge win in this for the Sixers. So we're going to have Harden next year too. He wasn't going to do that if he was with the Nets and he was going to be a free agent. So we have control of James Harden for next year. We can make some more moves this offseason since I don't know if this is the most complete deep team right now. They need to hit the buyout market and do a few other moves. They're definitely lacking some shooting and a good backup big. I don't really trust Paul Millsap as the backup center or any other players. Like, I don't even know who else it is. Charles Bassey. And
yeah.
I mean, it's not the most complete deep team, but say next year they'll still have their core. They'll have Maxey, Embiid, Harden, Thibault. Everyone's going to be back their core, and then they can fix the depth a little bit more. Maybe next year we're looking at them being a huge contender and maybe favorites to win the championship.
Yeah, I agree. Losing Drummond does hurt a little bit. Me and you weren't too high on Drummond his whole time here at Philly. We kind of, we talked about, again, I'm flashing back to our first episode when we talked about league moves and predictions. And when we brought in Drummond, we were just kind of like, that's it? But
yeah.
who knew he'd be part of a package to acquire James Harden? A lot of people are calling this trade foolish for the Sixers because they think that we could have just got Harden in the offseason, sign and trade, something like that, give up Tobias and a sign and trade. But at the end of the day, we secured him. We secured him for a year following this year. I'm just really excited. I haven't been this excited about a Philadelphia trade or signing since Jimmy Butler a couple of years ago. And
I was thinking the same thing.
Obviously, that team was very well put together. It was a very good team. They just never gelled, and we ran out of patience. I mean, we lost Jimmy. Jimmy did not like Philadelphia, so there goes that. But yeah, I think Harden could be a whole different story. I want to see another guy with James Harden like Eric Gordon, and he was kind of talked about this trade deadline. I really wanted Eric Gordon, not his contract, but I did want him after we got Harden. So yeah, I think if we put another shooter around Harden, again, get another big, I mean, this team's in great shape.
I think that they will at least get something in the buyout market. They'll be able to pick up, at the very least, I think there'll be some centers available, competent backup centers that they'll be able to grab. I know Enes Kanter got waived, and Tristan Thompson's looking like he'll probably be bought out, and some guys like that. I'm not a huge fan of any of them, but that's an upgrade from what we have right now. So at least it takes the load off Embiid a little bit. And then I think come next year, they just need to add shooters to this team. I really want, like you said, Eric Gordon would have been the perfect fit. I'm a little disappointed, though, with the Sixers. They didn't make another move to bring in just more role players, small deals, like second-round picks, and give away just like Paul Reed or any of their young players that maybe have promised to bring in a more veteran player that could play now. I kind of wish they did trades like that, but you can't argue. I'd give the Sixers, I'd give them at least a B on this trade. I'd say probably B plus because Ben Simmons wasn't playing at all, and you got James Harden for him. That's a huge success.
Yeah, and you got guys this offseason, say the Sixers don't win it all this year, which is likely to happen, but you got guys going in the free agency like Dante DiVincenzo. You got Bobby Portis. You got some good role players. You got Robert Covington. You got Thaddeus Young. You got Pat Bev. You got some good role players coming this free agency. Obviously, there's guys like John Wall, Russell Westbrook. Those guys who've got the player options. They're probably going to pick them up, go back to their teams. But other than that, I mean, there's a lot of good role players. Like Joe Ingles for the Sixers.
Oh, that would be perfect.
It'd be the perfect fit. He's awesome. I can imagine he's going to go back to Utah, but
he's not on Utah now. He got traded.
I know, but did you see the thing? Rudy Gobert said bye for now.
Yeah, is that even allowed to go back after?
Yeah, I mean,
traded?
Technically it is.
Huh?
It's happened before. I saw a couple examples of it. Goran Dragic did that at one point. I forget what team he was on. I think it was when he was with the Mavericks, maybe for like a short time, and he went back to the Suns. Like within the same year, which is kind of crazy. That can happen unless it's crazy because it can happen unless there's certain restrictions that are put on trades, and if they go in unrestricted, then they can do whatever they want. So Joe Ingles, I imagine he goes back. Yeah, wow. And then you got like T.J. Warren, who would be a great fit here as well. I mean, he's fallen off since the bubble, but he'd be a great guy to space out the floor with Harden. I mean, overall, I'm just really excited to see James Harden. He's going to be rocking number 1, is what I heard.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool number for him.
Yeah.
He can't do 13.
Wilt Chamberlain. Yeah. Wilt taking up that 13, but 1 would be a cool number for him. I thought he was going to wear 8. I heard that too, but that's retired by Tony Rowan, so you can't do that.
Yeah, can't disrespect Tony Rowan. Probably the best lefty in Sixers history. Yeah. Very similar player style.
Yeah, Tony Rowan. I don't know. James Harden might be a close second.
Yeah, he's a poor man's Tony Rowan for this team. Yeah. So want to go on to the other side of the trade? What do you think for the Nets in this deal?
So I think the Nets made out very well. I think this might have been the best package they could have gotten for James Harden. Ben, obviously a wild card. Ben is either going to go in there and do really well or really bad. There's not really an in-between. I think playing him at the 4, I saw people talking about him being a small ball center, which I don't really agree with. I don't think he'd be great down there. But, yeah, play him at the 3 or 4. I think he's going to be great for KD to ease up the on-the-ball pressure for KD. That's going to be great. I think Seth Curry's going to be a great floor spacer for them. He's the best spot-up guy, maybe the best role player in the league right now. A guy that's going to shoot 50, 40, 90 pretty much every night. And then you got Drummond. I don't know how they're going to utilize him. I imagine they're still going to start Nicholas Claxton for a while. But, I mean, I like Drummond for them too. He's a guy who can, if you got some guys out, he might grab 20 rebounds. Like, you just never know. I think that's great. And then the 2 first-round picks have some protections on them, but who knows? They're so far down the line. I mean, there's one this year, but the 2027 one's so far away.
Yeah, I think for them, considering James Harden wanted out, I think you got to look at both trades through the team's perspectives. Ben Simmons wanted out, James Harden wanted out, and they were able to just pick up another person who wanted out that could possibly fit their team even better. So I think that given their circumstances, it was a great trade for both of them, and on paper, this is amazing for the Nets. They got so much deeper. They addressed their defensive needs. And my gosh, this is one of the best shooting teams ever assembled. Adding Seth Curry to that team with Patty Mills, Kyrie, Kevin Durant.
Crazy.
It sounds so good on paper. And part of me wants to think that they could be the favorites in the East right now. But there are some issues with them, which having Kyrie and Ben Simmons on the same team, that just sounds like a recipe for disaster.
The locker room's going to be in shambles.
There's like no way that they play every single game. They're just going to be fighting about everything. And Steve Nash has a huge handful to deal with this team. Even KD on the team too. They've all got their issues.
Yeah, there's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Pride, I guess, between the 3 of them.
Yeah.
But I do want to say I'm very excited to see Ben Simmons play again. I understand the way he left was salty here. A lot of Sixers fans, he's going to get booed out of his mind whenever he comes back to Philly. But I'm excited to see him play. I wanted Ben Simmons in a Sixers uniform since he was a junior in high school. When it happened, it was a dream come true. I appreciated Ben for his time here. He had some crazy highlights, some crazy good games. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out, and that's, I guess, the business end of the NBA. There's a lot of things, as we mentioned a long time ago, that the Sixers handled poorly. The coach, Doc Rivers, handled poorly, and Ben Simmons handled poorly. So, I'm excited for him to get back, hopefully find his groove and do well for them, but just not against us.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when we play them. And by the way, it is March 10th, very soon, that the Sixers and Nets play in Philly too.
That's the next game?
Yeah,
I thought
Philly.
they played tonight.
No, the Sixers play tonight, but they play Thunder, I believe.
Is James Harden suiting up?
No, he's out. They ruled him out with his hamstring still.
Okay, yeah, I imagine that happening.
So hopefully Harden, I'm expecting him to come back soon, but like they were saying that all these Nets fans were saying that he was faking the injury because he didn't want to play there and stuff. And, well, he's out as soon as he comes here. It was a real injury, so
yeah,
that kind of debunks that. And no, I think that first game between Philly and Brooklyn, that could be a huge rivalry in the East now for years to come. And I'm so excited to see Ben Simmons play against the Sixers, although my gut's telling me he's not going to be ready for that game. He's just not going to show up or something.
He better have max protection because Philly crowd, unfortunately, is just ruthless. They'll rip him apart. I think it's going to be the biggest boos we've heard in the NBA since LeBron left Cleveland.
Yeah, and it's coming from Philly fans, which I think can boo better than any fans in the world.
Oh, they could boo better in Cleveland, that's for sure.
If I know one thing about Philly fans, I know we can do that better. So
yeah. We're about 21 minutes into this show already, and we could go on and on about Ben and the James Harden trade, but I think we got to touch on other stuff that happened around the league. It's been crazy. Like my phone, I got the Woj tweets on alert, so I'm getting Twitter notifications all day about stuff that's happening, and it's been crazy. So I'll throw out the first trade here. We're doing this in, I guess, chronological order.
Yeah, minus the Harden trade. We had to just talk about that first.
Oh, yeah, we couldn't wait to talk about that one. So this is one of the trades last episode that we predicted correctly. We predicted Karis LeVert to go to Cleveland, and the exact trade is Cleveland Cavaliers received from the Indiana Pacers Karis LeVert and a 2022 second-round pick. And the Pacers received Ricky Rubio, who's having a great year prior to his injury. They got Ricky Rubio, a protected 2022 first, and two 2022 second-round picks via Houston and Utah. What are your initial thoughts on this one?
I love it for the Cavs. I think Karis LeVert is a perfect complement for that team. I already saw in his first game there. He looked really good. He fits well with them. He's just a scorer they needed. They already had one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, and they could just use a wing scorer because they weren't really getting a great scorer with Isaac Okoro, and they needed someone on the wing that could either play the 2 or 3 to be a good scorer, and that's Karis LeVert, and he's coming in. And I think he might even be like the 2 option on that team, and that I think it's the perfect deal for them. And for the Pacers, I mean, I don't really know. They were just kind of trying to get anything they can for their players. They get a first-round pick out of it. I guess it's good.
2 second-round picks as well. And we've seen, especially in recent years, second-round picks become great players in the NBA a couple years down the road. I think it was a good trade for both of them. You got Karis LeVert the opportunity that he needed to play on a winning team. He hasn't been on a winning team in a long time. And winning, I mean, like, actually, like, contending somewhat. That Brooklyn team was never really contending, and the Pacers were never really contending. But this Cleveland team's serious, and we were shocked, but we know that. Like, we acknowledge that they're a serious team. They're not a team you want to see in the first round for sure.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I think for the Pacers, getting 3 picks out of this is solid. And, yeah, Karis, I mean, there was a couple of games where the Cavs were starting Lamar Stevens, and Lamar Stevens is averaging like 4 points a game, but he was playing well for them when he started. But yeah, now you get a guy where you don't got to really worry about playing Lamar Stevens at all once Isaac Okoro is healthy and comes back. But yeah, Karis LeVert's a great fit. This Cavs team's deep, and they really can like thrive with anyone. They're making Rondo play 35 minutes, and Rondo's putting up 12 assists. I mean, they're doing good things with this team, and I'm excited for it. Now, we have another trade. If you want to announce this one, we were also correct on this one last show, which is awesome.
Wait, the CJ McCollum deal.
Yep.
Yeah. So CJ McCollum, the Pelicans received CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., Tony Snell, and then the Trailblazers got Josh Hart, Tomas Satoransky, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and Didi, whatever his name is, Lozda.
Yeah.
Never heard of him before this deal.
Yeah.
Also, a 2022 first-round pick and 2 second-round picks.
So my initial thoughts, I guess it's a win-win for both teams. We've seen some questionable trades from Portland this year, especially here at the deadline. I think once Zion returns and having a quote-unquote big three of CJ, Brandon Ingram, and Zion is going to be great. I think the league and the fans have just forgotten about Zion. Dude's average, in his second year, he averaged 27% on like 60% shooting, which is just ridiculous. Zion's a generational talent as long as he can stay healthy. That's the big question mark. But you're adding a 20-point per game scorer in CJ McCollum. He's averaging 20.5 this year. You add him, you add Larry Nance, who has become one of the best defenders in the league out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even have to start on your team. Larry Nance could provide good quality play off the bench. And then on the other end, Portland received a couple players. I believe they cut the DD dude. I think he's gone.
So he's not a part of
I only know him from watching like YouTube videos about like 2K and stuff. So I don't really know too much about him. But getting the first round pick, 2 future seconds, it's similar to the package that the Pacers received for Karis LeVert. I don't know if any of those guys other than Nikhil Alexander-Walker is really there to stay. But
yeah, Hart probably will leave in free agency eventually. And also one thing, the first round pick, it's a protected first round pick.
Yeah.
It looks like they're probably not going to get it this year. I got to look up the clauses on it, but it seems like it's a very low chance that they end up getting that first rounder this year, and they'll end up getting it probably the following year in 2023, which the Pelicans will have Zion back in that time, and it won't be very good.
Yeah, and I saw that. Another thing I did want to mention is the window for Anthony Simons to step up. So,
oh yeah,
a lot of people are predicting he's going to have like a Darius Garland kind of jump, and I could kind of see it.
Yeah, when he gets the opportunities, he plays really good.
Yeah, he does.
Anthony Simons is a great player, and I just like this move for the Pelicans overall because you get another scorer for that team. They needed more guards. They just needed something else to either keep Zion there or keep this team relevant. And I think getting CJ McCollum there, he's a very quality NBA player. He's an above. I don't know why I'm saying quality. He's a star player in the NBA. Not like a superstar player, but he's a star player. He's that big three with him, Ingram, and Zion. That could be really good if they get the right pieces around it.
The fact that he's going to be a third option is kind of crazy because he's always been a second option.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I mean, his numbers might slump a little bit, but I mean, I wonder what his impact will be on that team. And I guess we just got to stay tuned to find out. Another thing I want to mention is remember the name Tomas Satoransky because he's going to be traded. He got traded again from Portland, but we'll get to that later. The next trade, we have the Sacramento Kings and the Indiana Pacers. This was probably the second biggest deal at the trade deadline behind the Harden and Ben Simmons deal. That was the blockbuster. But this trade, we saw the Kings receive Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday, and a protected 2023 second-round pick. And the Pacers received Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. I think the Pacers win this trade, but I also see the perspective of the Kings. They're throwing all their marbles in on De'Aaron Fox. We really saw that Tyrese and De'Aaron Fox thrived without each other. That was one thing we talked about. And another thing I want to mention, give a little kudos to us. We talked about this. We had a whole episode talking about the Kings and the Pacers blowing it up, and that's exactly what they did to help each other out.
Yeah, that was like the first thing we talked about when we started this show was what team should blow it up, and these were both the two we talked about.
And we literally, if we ourselves put together a trade to help each other out, that would have been the trade we would have came up with.
Yeah, probably.
I do think the Pacers do get the better end of this deal slightly, But Domantas Sabonis could be a great player with De'Aaron Fox. So, what are your thoughts? I think both teams did pretty well.
I don't know. I disagree a little bit. I love Sabonis. Don't hear me wrong, but giving up Tyrese Halliburton, that's your best player. That's your future.
Oh yeah, no, I agree on that aspect.
He's better than De'Aaron
sure.
Fox. Why was he given up in this deal? This makes no sense. Giving up Halliburton, and I feel like they could have got the deal done if they gave up Fox or if they gave up more draft picks. Just try something else. And if they're giving up Halliburton, I feel like they could have got more than just Sabonis back. I mean, Sabonis is pretty good. That's an all-star caliber player, but
they were talking about Ben Simmons for him.
And I think they could have maybe even, if James Harden wasn't available, the Sixers might have pulled the trigger and done that deal. But I heard a lot of stuff in other podcasts with people that are in the NBA were saying teams had no clue Tyrese Halliburton was available, and nobody really made pushes for him. Everybody just assumed he was untouchable, and then all of a sudden the Kings gave him up. I think they could have got better packages for Tyrese Halliburton if they were really trying to move him, if they thought him and Fox couldn't fit. But I don't think that they were trying to move Tyrese Halliburton. I think they got so set on, we want to bring in Domantas Sabonis. We don't care who we give up. We want him to be our new number one player. And I don't think that's the best mindset. In this trade, I'd have to give the Kings, I'd give them a C-. I see a lot of people hating, giving them like Fs on the deal.
Yeah.
They still get Sabonis, but I'm giving them like a C-.
I'd be in that range too.
And then I guess for the Pacers, I'd give them like an A.
Okay, I would give them more. Yeah, I'd give them more like a B, just because I feel like if they made other moves alongside this move, it would be an A, because we'd see what direction they're going. But they're kind of
do anything else. Really.
Yeah, like does Miles Turner even want to be there anymore? Like, I don't.
He's been trade rumors for forever.
We talked about him back in December about getting traded, so that's interesting. I don't know, pretty good trade. I'd like to see De'Aaron Fox step up to what like the flashes of greatness that we saw his rookie year and sophomore year. And I think that might happen. We got another trade. It's a 3-team trade, and I do want to retract my statement about Nickeil Alexander-Walker staying with Portland long term.
Yeah, he got traded.
I only thought they got rid of Thomas Satoransky, but the Jazz adding Nickeil Alexander-Walker is interesting. So the full trade is the Portland Trailblazers. It's between Portland, the Spurs, and the Jazz. Sorry, this is a lot of talking here. A lot of long names in this list.
Yeah.
We got Joe Ingles, Elijah Hughes, and a second-round pick going to Portland. We got the Spurs receiving Satoransky and a 2022 second-round pick. And we have the Jazz receiving Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Juan Hernan-Gomez. I mean, this is one of the smaller trades. This is like a blockbuster, but all 3 teams receive role players that could be good for them. And I kind of wish the Jazz never got rid of Joe Ingles, but adding a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's not afraid to shoot the ball off the bench, one of those guys who can get red hot, I think that's a good deal for the Jazz. And the Jazz seem like they can make anything work. So that's interesting. And then Satoransky on the Spurs, he's proven to be a great backup point guard. For a team that's trying to make the play-in, try and make a playoff spot, I think that's a solid move.
Yeah, and they needed that point guard. They needed another point guard to go with DeJounte Murray there. I think Satoransky will do a good job. The only thing in this trade, I have no clue why the Trailblazers were doing this. Their only real asset that we thought, when we were just talking about it earlier, because we didn't even realize Nickeil Alexander-Walker was thrown into this trade. When we were talking about the trade earlier, we were saying the Trailblazers probably only keep Alexander Walker out of this package, and then they trade him for basically nothing back. Joe Ingles is going to be a free agent. Maybe Elijah Hughes is good and a second-round pick. I would have just kept Alexander Walker and not be involved in this deal.
Yeah, it's just one of those trades that's like really? Like, what does that do for you? It just kind of leaves you like questioning the direction they're going in, because they've talked about clearing up cap space, but who in our lifetime, maybe ever, has signed with the Portland Trailblazers willingly?
Yeah, nobody.
No one wants to go to Portland. It's not a big market. It's like if this was a team like I don't know, even like the Houston Rockets, like their market's way bigger than Portland's. Like, I don't know, the Bulls, another big market.
Direction, they're trying to keep Dame and then just retool and sign a bunch of people.
Yeah,
I don't understand it. And
they got a free Dame Lillard.
Yeah, I think
Let him go.
I don't think it ends up working. They try. I think they'll sign like a mediocre player to a way too big deal. It ends up kind of being the same thing. Like a someone worse than CJ McCollum is now the number 2 there and making CJ McCollum money.
Yeah.
And then they end up trading Dame, and
Yeah.
it doesn't work. That's kind of what I see happening.
Yeah. The only name I could think of that actually went to Portland, I don't even remember if he was traded or not, but Scottie Pippen. Like, that's all I can think about that's ever gone to Portland that had like a significant impact. But that was an old Scottie Pippen too. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't see any big name going to play there, especially with Dame having a down season prior to his injury. It's just kind of like, you just got to let him go. Um, I do want to mention, we're going to skip over a minor trade here. I'll just say the Heat received the 2022 second round pick and the Thunder received KZ Okpala. Very, very insignificant trade. But the fun thing is that second round picks can turn into big names and they could be traded to get a big name.
We're seeing a lot of that today, just teams throwing in a bunch of seconds. It helps out.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's interesting to see what they turn into down the road. Next trade, you want to announce it?
Yeah, so a big trade is a 4-team deal.
Which I didn't even know was possible, by the way. I only thought 3-team trades were the max.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
I can't think of any in my lifetime. I'm pretty sure I thought of, because when I saw that, I was like, has there ever been a 4-team trade? The only one I could remember is the Bynum trade with the Sixers.
Oh, that's right.
That was wild.
Was that a 5-team trade?
I don't even know. There were so many. I'm just trying to remember. We'll get back on that one, but it was like Andrew Bynum, Dwight Howard, Iguodala, all in a deal, and there was Vucevic was in the deal. There was many teams involved. It was crazy. That was one of the coolest trades ever, and I don't know. One episode we should react to old trades because that'd actually be kind of cool to look at them.
Oh, this is torture. I'm seeing an old article saying, the Sixers trade for Andrew Bynum for a steal of a deal. Are they possible contenders? Oh, man, that hurts.
It's funny because he didn't even play a game here.
Yeah,
that's the worst part.
Yeah, that hurts to read.
Yeah, that was crazy back then. I want to... No, that's motivating me. It seems fun to look back at like just wild trades that have happened in our lifetime and react to them now, like with all we know and what actually happened, because reacting in the moment, we don't know how these trades are going to turn out. They could end up like being the complete opposite of our initial thoughts. And
definitely
a lot of times teams get these star players and things don't work out. So we'll see. Hopefully Harden and Philly ends up working out, like unlike the Bynum deal, which was a huge deal back at that time. But anyways, back to the trade we were talking about. This is a 4-team deal, the 4-team deal of this trade deadline. And it's where the Milwaukee Bucks received Serge Ibaka and 2 second-round picks. The Sacramento Kings received Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Jackson, and Trey Lyles. The Clippers received Rodney Hood and Semi Ojeleye. And then the Pistons received Marvin Bagley. So that was a lot right there. I guess I'll start off with the Bucks. They got Serge Ibaka, but they gave up Dante DiVincenzo, who was a pretty promising young role player. What do you think about the Bucks end of this deal?
Yeah, I kind of don't understand it. I like the addition of Ibaka, but I feel like Dante DiVincenzo, when you look at it just between getting Ibaka for giving out DiVincenzo, it looks terrible. Because DiVincenzo, I don't know what his trade value is, but it's got to be more significant than a guy that was playing in the G League earlier this year.
Yeah.
Like, Ibaka has been proven to be one of the better defenders in the NBA. At one point, he was one of the best. He had the nickname Sergi Blocka because he'd average a crazy amount of blocks. I mean, they do get 2 future second-round picks. I guess that's, like, when you look at it combined, it's kind of the asking price for DiVincenzo. But they've really gone in the direction of taking Grayson Allen over DiVincenzo. So I think that was the main thing in this trade. I kind of like it for the Kings. They bring in DiVincenzo. They lost Halliburton. So, I mean, you got Fox and DiVincenzo in your backcourt. That's really not bad at all. And DiVincenzo's a very good defender. Yeah. So it's interesting.
Solid 3-and-D guy. I think for the Bucks, DiVincenzo hasn't been as good this year as he was before his injury, and I think Grayson Allen's kind of took over the Dante DiVincenzo role on this team. I think he's getting more minutes than DiVincenzo, and
Yeah.
I guess they instead realized we might need a big. We like what Serge Ibaka brings defensively as just another big for this team. So they realized they could get rid of DiVincenzo, who will be a free agent not this offseason, but 2 off seasons from now. And I guess it makes sense if they're making a championship push to try and pursue Serge Ibaka and pick up the draft picks.
Yeah.
I guess we talked about the Kings and Bucks part. We'll move over to the other part of the deal.
Well, real quick before we skip,
yeah.
the Kings, when you look at it in their perspective, they give up Marvin Bagley for DiVincenzo, Josh Jackson, and Trey Lyles. I mean, that's pretty solid.
Yeah, that's way more than I thought Bagley's trade value was.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Marvin Bagley now in this deal. Marvin Bagley goes to the Pistons. I think it's just a new opportunity for him. He'll get playing time there. He'll
Former second overall pick.
Over Luka
Doncic, over Trae Young.
Yeah.
When you look back at it, I'm sure Kings fans are probably furious, but I mean, who knows what he's going to do? I mean, Marvin Bagley could take this opportunity and run with it. He's got a good young point guard in Cade Cunningham he's playing with. He's got another good front court guy in Jeremy Grant, and he's got shooter like Sadiq Bey. So who knows what Bagley could do with it? I don't think he's going to turn into a star, but I mean, who knows? He possibly could. What are your thoughts on Detroit getting Bagley?
I just think it's a good move for them to get Bagley because they'll give him an opportunity there. It's great for Marvin Bagley, and if it doesn't work, they didn't give up much in this deal.
Yeah.
So it's worth a try there at least. They give up who were their pieces? Josh Jackson,
Trey Lyles. And I think one of the second round picks went to Milwaukee.
Yeah, that's not giving up much at all for Bagley. It's worth a try. And then Clippers just get Rodney Hood and Semi Ojeleye for Serge Ibaka, and maybe one of those picks was theirs. It doesn't say which picks were whose.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter on the Clippers' part. Serge Ibaka was, as we said, like a G League player for them. They didn't want him. They get rid of him. It's whatever.
Well, Rodney Hood was on the Bucks.
They also gave up Hood then.
Yeah, that even looks worse for the Bucks. But
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was part of the trade. Rodney Hood was part of the trade with Gary Trent.
Way back.
Yeah, that trade's a disaster, but that's for another talk.
Yeah.
Anything else before we move on to the next trade?
No, I think that one's good. Kind of irrelevant trade, but some of these pieces, it could end up being the difference between like the Bucks winning a championship or not, or it could be the difference between them. They might lose the championship not having DiVincenzo there now.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It's all just a matter of time. That's the fun part about the deadline and what can come of it. So
yeah.
Next, we have a trade between the Toronto Raptors and the San Antonio Spurs. We see the Raptors receive Thaddeus Young, Drew Eubanks, and a 2022 second-round pick from Detroit that the Spurs owned. Detroit's not involved in this trade, but the Spurs received Goran Dragic and a 2022 first-round pick. So, I mean, the Spurs really get a first-round pick out of, I guess, Thad Young and Eubanks. I mean, that's pretty good.
That's really good. I love that.
Thad Young can be a very good role player for the Raptors, but I don't think the first round pick potential is much. But I don't know. Dragic in the Spurs, we saw them get Thomas Satoransky. I don't really know. I mean, Satoransky's 6'5", 6'6", so he could certainly play the 2 or the 3, where we saw him do that in Washington and on the Bulls for a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, Dragic could be a great vet to help out DeJounte Murray off the bench. I don't think this trade's too significant. What are your thoughts?
I just think the fact that the Spurs got a first-round pick for, as you said,
it does have protections.
Drew Eubanks. Still, it's a great move for them to be able to get that. And I think that's a solid move, and they needed another guard. They got Satoransky and Dragic at the trade deadline, which are very inexpensive guards that they picked up, so they can at least make some contention this year for a play-in, and at the same time they pick up future assets. So I like it for the Spurs here. Yeah,
not bad at all. We have another small trade, if you want to announce that one, between Celtics and the Magic.
So the Celtics get a second-round pick, and the Magic get Bol, PJ Dozier, and a future second-round pick.
I guess a W for the Magic. I mean, they gave up nothing to bring in Bol. I mean, he's one of those question mark guys where it's like people have been saying he's going to go off for a couple of years now, and he just hasn't had the opportunity. I think I will say the Magic are a very confusing franchise. They have a very confusing process that's going on right now, but they are very good at letting the young guys play. So
they love letting the young guys play, and they keep picking up these like project players. And
yeah, like Mo Bamba, for example, he was a project, and they knew that.
Which it might end up working. Maybe they turn something into Bull. I want to see a court where they have Bull and Mo Bamba out there at the same time.
Oh my gosh,
that'd be kind of fun to watch.
That's a tall lineup.
Yeah, just get like the two of the tallest guys in the league out there at the same time. Probably two of the longest wingspans in the league too. I think those two are like top 5.
Yeah,
in that.
I mean, Bull's built exactly like his father, a little shorter, but I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, he has some long arms, and I don't know that trade. It seems like Bull's been on. How many teams has he been on this year? Is this his 4th?
Well, technically, he never went to the Pistons because he failed his physical.
That's right. Yeah.
So he was on. For those who don't keep up with Bull, which is probably everyone, he was on the Nuggets for a couple years. Then he was traded to the Pistons earlier this year. He failed his physical, so he had to go back to the Nuggets. The Nuggets traded him maybe 2 days later to Boston, and then Boston at this deadline just traded him to the Magic, and he never suited up for Boston. So basically, he just went from the Nuggets to the Magic with just a couple things in between. Again, nothing too significant of this trade. I think the Magic won. Moving on, the next trade chronologically would be the Nets receiving Ben Simmons and that trade, yada, yada, yada. The Sixers getting Harden. Next, after that, was another trade with the Boston Celtics and another trade with the San Antonio Spurs. So this is a pretty good trade. Nothing too crazy, but just one player for one player trade. We see the Celtics get Derek White and the Spurs get Josh Richardson. I think they're pretty much like identical players. Josh Richardson's probably a little worse than Derek White at this point in their career, but they're very similar. They kind of do the same stuff, and it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, Josh Richardson never really fit in well with the Celtics.
Neither with the Sixers, honestly.
No, he hasn't fit in anywhere since the Heat. And
yeah.
I loved him on the Heat. He was one of my
awesome.
favorite players back then.
I loved it when we got him.
Yeah, I was so excited for that because I was like, oh, we gave up Jimmy Butler, but Josh Richardson's solid.
Yeah.
He's all right. I tried to convince myself it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Then I convinced myself, oh, we got Al Horford now. Now we're going somewhere. But anyways, this trade really isn't that important. Derek White, the Spurs got a bunch of other point guards earlier in the day, which we just said. So they give up Derek White, who's one of their guards, bring in someone who could do a little more and play more positions than Josh Richardson. So that's really all that is.
Yeah, nothing too significant. We're going to skip this next trade, too. It's a small one. Suns received Torrey Craig from the Pacers, and the Pacers received Jalen Smith and a future second. Jalen Smith's a young guy who can potentially be good, and we've been raving about second-round picks and how they can develop into good players as well. Nothing too crazy there. Moving on, this is a pretty big trade for the Hornets. They received Montrezl Harrell from the Wizards, and the Wizards get Vernon Carey and Ish Smith. W for the Hornets. They've been itching for a center for a while, and Montrez is a little undersized, but we've seen him play very well as he was a sixth man of the year. So pretty interesting scenario for the Hornets, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think Vernon Carey's got some potential. He's a solid young player, but I don't know. I feel like given the fact that the Hornets really needed a center desperately, I think the Wizards could have got a little bit more out of this. Like, he's the perfect fit for the Hornets. You can't tell me the Wizards couldn't have at least got another second round pick out of this, or like something like that, or a protected first round pick. I just think that the Wizards probably should have tried to get a little bit more than just Ish Smith and Carey. But overall, get rid of Harrell. You bring in a younger guy, which is more the direction of the team, and then Hornets love the Montrezl Harrell pickup. I think he might end up being their starting center too.
Yeah, I think so as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they mesh. I mean, I think Harrell's one of those guys where he can mesh pretty much anywhere and do pretty well because he's not like too demanding of the ball, and he plays all right defense. Yeah, not a bad pickup. Moving on, we'll skip over this one, not go too in depth. It's the Suns receive Aaron Holiday from the Wizards for cash consideration.
That's nice for the Suns, just getting Aaron Holiday pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, he's a decent player, not bad. So if you want to shout out this next trade, it's a pretty big deal between the Mavs and the Wizards.
Yeah, this is a big deal, and you'll see in a second. This trade really didn't make sense upon first hearing it. So the Mavericks get Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, and the Wizards get Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick. So what do you think of this?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what you have to say, but yeah, originally didn't really get it. I really like that the Wizards dumped the contract of Bertans. I feel like that's one of the worst deals in basketball. Bertans is good at one thing, and that is spot up shooting and nothing else. He is a liability on defense. He's one of those guys that just gets picked on every game. Like, if a player has a decent forward, they'll just run whoever offense on Davis Bertans. We've seen that so many times. We saw the Sixers in the playoffs go at him with Tobias Harris. Yeah, interesting. And Spencer Dinwiddie's having a terrible year. I think I shouted him out like the first episode as one of those guys that could take the most improved player leap. Thankfully, I didn't pick him, but he is not leaping at all. He's playing one of the worst seasons in his career. He's shooting a career low. But Porzingis having an alright year. I think it's the Wizards just trying to appeal to Brad Beal a little bit. I think they're like, yo, look, Brad, look what we brought you. And it's just like a mediocre forward. So, I mean, Porzingis had flashes of greatness in his young days at the Knicks, but we haven't really seen him stay healthy and stay productive since. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't really know the direction of the Wizards. They have like no guards now. They, especially with Bradley Beal's injury, they're lacking guards. I have no clue why they're doing this. But Porzingis is the best player in the deal. They bring in Porzingis. I mean, you could maybe argue Dinwiddie's better, but I'd probably still say it's Porzingis. And maybe they'll find a way to utilize him. He hasn't. I want to see him in a new situation. I guess it might work out.
I thought he would do well with Luka, honestly. I thought they were going to be a great 1-2 punch when that trade originally happened. And Porzingis also got a year to learn from Dirk, but I guess nothing really came from it.
Yeah. I just don't think Porzingis is that good.
I think he's very good, but I think he's scared to get hurt, and rightfully so. I'm not blaming him. I think he's scared about his legs. We don't see him jump that much anymore like he used to. Like New York, he was chased down blocks. He was dunking on people. It was like a Porzingis highlight every night in New York, and now you don't see that. You really don't hear from him because his lack of play time on the court. He just can't stay on the court, and I think that's his biggest downfall. Other than that, there's no doubt that he's talented. He's a really modern center power forward. He can shoot. He can shot block. I don't know. Yeah, new situation's going to be interesting, and I'm excited for it. He's 7'3". He's a big power forward. I'm curious to see how Washington utilizes him.
And I guess maybe the pieces of Dinwiddie and Bertans work out better with Luka. They fit better because both can shoot. I feel like Porzingis is sometimes more of a liability than he is an asset for the Mavericks. So I don't know. Maybe they'll be able to run their offense better with this. Although I just don't understand why they want to take on the Bertans contract. And that kind of sucks for them having to take that on.
Yeah, it's a big contract for a guy who probably doesn't deserve that much. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the Wizards play this out. I think the Mavericks made out pretty well for getting rid of Porzingis, even though they got some bad contracts in return. There was a buzzer beater trade. I believe it happened at like 3:58 when the deadline was at 4, if I'm not mistaken. It was the Celtics and the Rockets. It was a quick trade between Danny Tice going back to Boston, where we've seen him thrive in the past, and the Rockets received Schroeder, Enes Kanter, and Bruno Fernando. Enes Kanter was waived shortly after the trade, so he's a free agent right now. But Bruno Fernando and Dennis Schroeder going to the Rockets, don't really see the impact. I don't think either of them are that good. But Danny Tice going back to Boston, he's like a fan favorite there, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of an irrelevant trade, but Daniel Tice will get quality minutes on a team that will probably be in the playoffs, so he'll be a good center there, and that was by far the best Daniel Tice we've ever seen was with the Celtics, and we know Schroeder did not work out in Boston. They get rid of him for Tice. It's just kind of flipping two guys that are around the same tier and getting one that would fit better. So I think it, I guess, benefits both teams. Really, doesn't matter for the Rockets, I guess, because they're not going for anything, but it benefits the Celtics, so I like it for them.
Yeah, and that was all the trades that happened on the deadline day. So much fun. I mean, this was a great trade deadline. There were so many trades. We just covered them in an hour, which is crazy. We could have talked about it for 5-6 hours, but I kind of want to just real quick, excluding the trade between the Nets and the Sixers, what team do you think made out the best in part of their trade?
It's a tough one to answer.
I don't think there was real fleeces.
No, I like what the Suns did, getting small pickups that helped their depth, getting Aaron Holiday for nothing, and then Torrey Craig, who was a key contributor for them that made the finals last year. I think those are solid pickups. I liked them. I'd say, actually, I have my winner now. The Cavs getting Karis LeVert.
That's my winner.
That was the best deal. I think that might be the biggest fleece. I don't know if it was a fleece necessarily because, the Pacers really had no use for LeVert anyways, and he wasn't a part of their future.
And the Pacers got a first-round pick in 2 seconds. So,
but I just think as far as a team going in the right direction, adding a piece that they really needed, no trade beats the Cavs getting Karis LeVert.
Yeah, 19 point per game score. I mean,
didn't give up too much either.
Yeah, adding that to your team's always beneficial. His contract's not crazy bad. It's probably a good contract for someone like Karis. But yeah, other than that, I think the Hornets getting Montrezl Harrell could be pretty good for them, for a team trying to fight for a playoff spot.
Yeah, of course, that's a solid one.
And then there's small trades that, who knows, maybe 3 years from now we look back at this and we're like, holy cow, this team made out so well, or holy cow, this team made out so bad. Similar to what's been going on with the Norman Powell and Gary Trent thing, like how people are reflecting on that.
Was that a trade deadline deal? That was, right?
Yeah.
Like this time last year, and it ended up being a huge success for the Raptors. And
yeah, like who knows, maybe like Marvin Bagley goes crazy in Detroit, or Dante DiVincenzo makes a big leap. You just don't know. And that's the fun part about all this, because it's not like these GMs know the future any better than us. You know what I mean? We can't really predict who's going to go crazy, who's not. Yeah, it's interesting.
In this trade deadline, I feel like a lot of it was situational based.
Yeah.
Teams made them deals that they had to make because of the situation of their franchise. Like, for example, the Nets and Sixers had 2 players that didn't want to be there. They made something work, and I think pretty much if you look at it through each team's perspective, most of these trades are a success. They got done what they needed to and what they wanted to get done. There wasn't any that just were off the walls crazy, and I was like, why did that team do it? Only one that I'd say was like a bad trade and might be a little crazy is the Kings with trading Tyrese Halliburton. But at the same time, you get an all-star. It wasn't that bad. It's an okay deal.
Do you think there's any panic button trades? Like teams are just like, oh, I got to figure something out here. It's the deadline. I'm going to send someone there.
I feel like the Celtics was a little bit like that. They were making all these like small moves that really didn't get them that much better. It was just kind of moving laterally a lot. They made a lot of moves.
I think Portland had a couple panic trades.
CJ McCollum might have been a panic trade.
Like bringing in Joe Ingles and stuff. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
It's the teams that don't know their direction too that are making these panic trades that are they're just switching things up.
Pacers.
Yeah.
Even the Pacers. They brought in Halliburton, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But, like, I thought Miles Turner was going to be gone. I thought Brogdon was going to be gone. They
didn't finish everything. I mean, some players, I feel like also the Pistons, why didn't they trade Jeremy Grant? That was one of the names I thought was a guaranteed to get traded.
Yeah. To the Bulls, I thought was going to happen.
There was a lot of options for Jeremy Grant out there, and they never ended up trading him. And for what now? He's way older than the rest of their core, and now they're kind of stuck with him, which I thought you could at least get maybe 1-2 first-round picks out of Jeremy Grant or a good young player. They didn't do anything there, so I feel like that's kind of a loss for them not doing anything with him.
Yeah, it was a fun episode. We were looking forward to this for so long, and last week just talking about it got me really hyped for it. I know you feel the same way. But yeah, it was a great episode. I'm glad we covered everything that we wanted to cover. Last thing I'll mention is we do have a Twitter account. I've shouted out the past couple episodes. It's at the 3/2, the name of our radio show and podcast. So follow us on there. Check us out. We repost stuff that we find interesting. We talk about stuff. We post some graphics about recapping our show, and it's been a lot of fun being on the Twitter space a little bit. So that's really it for the 3/2. Thanks for tuning in.